"He only bleeds when she touches him," Sarah whispered. The words vanished beneath the music before anyone could hear them. Wintermoon Hall glittered with candlelight, silver goblets, and white roses brought from the southern greenhouses for the Alpha King's engagement feast. Nobles filled the long tables beneath black wolf banners, their laughter rising whenever Lady Vanessa Sterling smiled. Sarah Mitchell moved among them carrying a tray of spiced wine. She had learned to walk without being noticed. Eyes lowered, steps silent, shoulders narrow enough to pass between chairs without brushing silk or fur. Waitresses were permitted to carry secrets. They were not permitted to understand them. At the raised table, Alpha King Ethan Blackwood sat beside his fiancée. He was impossible to mistake for another man. Tall even while seated, broad beneath black leather and a heavy wolf fur cloak, he seemed built for battle rather than ceremony. Firelight touched his dark hair and the hard line of his jaw. Yet something was wrong. His left hand remained closed around the arm of his chair, too tightly. Vanessa leaned toward him with a gentle smile. "You are pale," she murmured. Her white-gloved fingers moved to the side of his neck. Ethan's shoulders locked, only for a heartbeat. Then a thin red line appeared beneath his collar. Sarah nearly dropped the tray. Vanessa adjusted the silver clasp at his throat as though smoothing a fold. Her sapphire ring flashed beneath the candles. Ethan drew one slow breath through his nose. When Vanessa removed her hand, blood had stained the edge of his white collar. No one reacted. A noble raised his cup. The musicians continued playing. Dr. Nathan Cole, seated below the royal platform, watched Ethan's face, but not the wound. Sarah reached the table. "Wine, Your Majesty?" Ethan looked at her. His gray eyes were clear, but strain darkened the skin beneath them. "No," Vanessa answered for him. "He has had a difficult journey." Her tone was warm. Her gaze was not. Sarah lowered the tray. As she stepped away, Ethan's chair shifted behind her. Wood scraped stone. She turned before she could stop herself. The Alpha King had risen, but one hand had caught the table's edge. For an instant, his balance failed. Vanessa placed her palm against his back. Ethan steadied. The entire movement lasted less than 2 seconds. Everyone pretended not to see. Sarah did not. Later, while servants cleared the raised table, she found a folded linen napkin beneath Ethan's chair. One corner held a drop of blood. At its center rested a black speck no larger than a grain of salt. Sarah carried it toward the service corridor, away from the candles and perfume. She rubbed the speck between 2 fingers. It crumbled into powder. A bitter smell rose from it. Wolfsbane. Her mother had kept the same dried herb inside a locked wooden box, far from children and cooking fires. Even a small amount could weaken a wolf. Mixed with silver, it could silence one from the inside. Sarah looked back through the open doors. Vanessa stood alone beside Ethan's chair. She had removed one glove. A pale silver dust circled the base of her sapphire ring. Dr. Cole approached and spoke quietly to her. Vanessa closed her hand before anyone else could notice. Then Ethan returned to the hall. He took 3 steps toward the engagement platform. His knee nearly gave beneath him. Vanessa reached out and caught his arm. The noble smiled at the tenderness of it. Sarah watched another dark stain spread beneath his collar. Vanessa lifted her face toward Ethan with perfect concern. But while the Alpha King fought to remain standing, his fiancée smiled. Lady Vanessa Sterling knew exactly when to be kind. She remembered the names of noblemen's daughters. She praised servants when powerful guests were listening. She touched Ethan's arm with careful tenderness whenever the court began watching them. By midnight, half the hall believed she had already become their queen. Sarah carried empty goblets toward the service table and counted every time Vanessa reached for the Alpha King. Once at his wrist, once beneath his collar, once against the side of his neck. Each touch looked affectionate. Each one left Ethan weaker. After the third, he stopped lifting his wine. After the fourth, his wolf fur cloak seemed too heavy for his shoulders. After the fifth, he pressed 2 fingers against his ribs as though something inside him had tightened. No one questioned Vanessa. Why would they? She was beautiful, composed, and born to a family whose silver mines supplied weapons to 3 northern packs. The engagement would end years of border disputes. Every noble in Wintermoon Hall needed the marriage to succeed. Sarah was only the woman refilling their cups. "His Majesty requires rest," Dr. Nathan Cole announced when Ethan's hand began trembling against the table. The healer approached with a polished wooden case beneath one arm. He checked Ethan's pulse for less than a breath. Exhaustion, he said. Ethan's gray eyes narrowed. I know what exhaustion feels like. Vanessa placed one white-gloved hand over his. You have not slept since returning from the eastern border. Her thumb moved slowly across the inside of his wrist. Ethan flinched. Sarah saw it. Dr. Cole did not. Or pretended not to. The engagement ceremony should be delayed, Ethan said. The music weakened. Vanessa smiled, but the muscles near her eyes hardened. Only until you have eaten. She turned toward Sarah. You. Bring the king's broth. Sarah lowered her head. Yes, my lady. As she reached for the bowl, Vanessa removed her glove. The sapphire ring caught the candlelight. A pale line of powder circled the stone. Silver. Sarah carried the broth toward Ethan, watching the ring rather than the bowl. A narrow seam ran beneath the sapphire setting. Too straight to be decorative. Vanessa extended her hand toward Ethan's collar again. Sarah stepped between them to place the bowl on the table. The movement was small, deliberate. Vanessa's fingers stopped inches from Ethan's throat. Their eyes met. For one moment, the kindness disappeared from Vanessa's face. Then it returned. You are blocking me. Sarah moved aside. My apologies. Vanessa leaned closer. You should be more careful. Her voice was soft enough for Sarah alone. A servant who watches her betters too closely often mistakes ordinary things for danger. Sarah looked at the sapphire. And sometimes ordinary things are made to hide it. Vanessa's smile remained. Dr. Cole closed his medical case. The king needs no treatment. Only quiet. Sarah placed the broth before Ethan. He looked at her hand. The black speck from the linen had stained the edge of her thumb. His gaze rose to her face. He had noticed. Before either could speak, Vanessa lifted her bare hand and brushed a strand of hair from Ethan's neck. The hidden seam beneath her ring opened. Only slightly. A silver point appeared beneath the sapphire. Sarah's breath caught. Vanessa withdrew her hand before the needle touched him. A warning, not the final strike. She knew Sarah had seen. Across the table, Ethan's fingers closed around the spoon. What is it? He asked. Sarah looked at Vanessa. The fiancée smiled warmly at the king while slowly sliding her glove back over the ring. Nothing, Your Majesty, she said. Then she turned to Sarah. Isn't that right? Sarah lowered her eyes. For now. But beneath the table, she began counting every touch. The first bloodstain appeared beneath Ethan's left ear. The second appeared in exactly the same place the following morning. By the third day of the engagement celebrations, Sarah had collected 3 linen neckcloths from the royal laundry. She should not have possessed any of them. The head laundress had ordered the stained cloths burned before the nobles woke. Sarah had exchanged them for clean linen and hidden the originals beneath loose floorboards in the servants' pantry. Now she stood alone beside the kitchen hearth, waiting for the water in a copper cup to steam. 3 cloths lay across the work table. 3 dark marks. 3 wounds no wider than a needle. Sarah lifted the first neckcloth toward the fire. The blood had dried brown. Around it, barely visible against the white linen, was a ring of black powder. The same powder had stained her thumb during the feast. She poured 1 drop of hot water onto it. The linen turned purple. Not slowly. Instantly. Sarah's stomach tightened. Her mother had shown her the reaction years ago, after a wounded hunter arrived at their cottage unable to shift. Wolfsbane alone remained dark in water. Silver alone left no color. Together, they turned cloth purple. Together, they could poison a wolf without killing the human body immediately. Sarah tested the second cloth. Purple spread across the stain. Then the third. All 3 wounds sat beneath Ethan's left ear, where the neck met the jaw. A place Vanessa touched whenever she adjusted his collar. A place no cup, plate, or careless servant could reach. The pantry door opened. Sarah folded the cloths beneath her apron. Caleb Turner entered carrying a bundle of sealed guard reports. The beta was broad-shouldered and watchful, with a scar across one hand from an old border battle. His eyes moved from Sarah to the steaming cup. What are you doing? Cleaning stains. In a locked pantry? Sarah looked toward the corridor. I need to speak with you. Caleb's expression hardened. About what? The king's illness. You are a waitress, and he is being poisoned. Silence settled between them. Caleb placed the reports on the table. Choose your next words carefully. Sarah removed 1 neckcloth and laid it before him. Caleb studied the purple stain. What caused that? Wolfsbane mixed with silver. His gaze lifted. Where did you get this? From His Majesty's collar. Caleb reached for the linen. Sarah caught his wrist. Do not touch the stain. The warning surprised him enough that he stopped. There are 3 cloths, she said. 3 different days. 3 wounds in the same place. Who has access to his clothing? Servants. Guards. Dr. Cole. That proves nothing. Sarah unfolded the 2nd cloth. Then the 3rd. It is not in his clothing. She pointed toward the small puncture at the center of each stain. It enters when someone touches him. Caleb's face changed. Only slightly. Who? Footsteps approached the pantry. White skirts appeared beneath the door. Sarah gathered the cloths, but the latch lifted before she could hide them all. Vanessa entered without knocking. Her sapphire ring shone against one bare hand. Dr. Cole stood behind her. Vanessa looked at the 3 blood-stained neckcloths. Then at Caleb. How fortunate, she said softly. The waitress has found an audience. Sarah saw the hidden seam beneath the sapphire open. A silver point slid into Vanessa's palm. Not toward Ethan this time. Toward her. Vanessa closed the pantry door. Now, she said, let us discuss what servants are permitted to notice. Vanessa closed the pantry door with one white-gloved hand. The silver point beneath her sapphire ring remained hidden against her palm. Caleb stepped between her and Sarah. My lady, he said, this is a servant's room. And yet my future husband's beta is standing inside it with a waitress and 3 stolen royal neckcloths. Dr. Cole reached for the linen. Sarah pulled it away. Do not touch them. The healer's mouth tightened. You presume much for a woman carrying cups. I know what wolfsbane does. You know kitchen remedies. I know the difference between exhaustion and poison. Vanessa's smile softened. That frightened Sarah more than anger would have. She moved closer until the scent of rose oil covered the bitterness of silver. Kings do not listen to women carrying trays, Vanessa whispered. Her hand rose. The sapphire caught the pantry light. Sarah saw the hidden needle before it touched her throat. She turned sharply. The point struck the stone wall beside her face. Vanessa pressed closer, pinning Sarah between the shelves and her own body. From beneath her sleeve, she drew a narrow silver hairpin. Know your place. Caleb seized Vanessa's wrist. That is enough. For the first time, her composure cracked. Only briefly. She withdrew the pin and looked at Caleb as though he had insulted the crown itself. You are protecting a servant who has stolen from the royal household. I am asking why you brought silver into a locked pantry. Dr. Cole stepped forward. For medical use. Sarah looked at him. Then why is it hidden inside her ring? The healer said nothing. A bell sounded from the great hall. The first call for the engagement ceremony. Vanessa glanced toward the door. Then her gaze dropped to Sarah's apron. She moved with practiced ease, brushing past as though leaving. Her fingers touched Sarah's waist. A small weight slipped into the apron pocket. Sarah felt the glass before she understood. Vanessa had planted something on her. Sarah reached for it. The silver hairpin returned to her ribs. Not yet, Vanessa murmured. Then she stepped away and opened the door. 2 royal guards waited outside. Vanessa's voice changed immediately. This waitress has stolen royal property and threatened me. Caleb moved toward the doorway. She did no such thing. Dr. Cole lifted the blood-stained linen. She has been handling contaminated cloth without permission. Sarah looked at Caleb. Check my apron. Vanessa's eyes sharpened. The second ceremony bell rang. Caleb reached toward Sarah's pocket. Vanessa caught his arm. The king is waiting. Caleb looked from her hand to Sarah's face. Something passed through his expression. Doubt. Not enough. Take the waitress to the lower hall, Vanessa ordered. She will serve during the ceremony where everyone can see her. The guards escorted Sarah from the pantry. She kept her hands away from the vial hidden in her apron. Touching it would make her look guilty. Running would do the same. The corridors opened into Wintermoon Hall. Hundreds of candles burned beneath the black wolf banners. Nobles had gathered around the engagement platform. At its center stood Ethan Blackwood in formal black armor, one hand resting against the table for support. His face was pale. Vanessa entered beside Sarah, smiling as the court bowed. Your Majesty, she said, the ceremony may begin. Sarah tried to move toward Ethan. A guard blocked her path with one arm. I need to speak to the king. Servants do not interrupt royal vows. On the platform, Ethan lifted his gaze. He saw Sarah, then the guard holding her back. Sarah opened her mouth. Vanessa stepped between them. Dr. Cole approached Ethan with a cup of tonic. The 3rd bell rang. A servant carried forward the engagement rings. Vanessa removed her glove. The sapphire ring remained on her finger. Its hidden seam opened. Sarah saw the silver needle slide into place. Ethan extended his hand. Vanessa reached toward his collar. And every guard in the hall was watching the waitress instead of the woman about to kill him. "Don't touch him again." Sarah's voice cut through the engagement vows. Vanessa's hand stopped inches from Ethan's throat. The entire hall turned. For one heartbeat, no one moved. Then Sarah drove her shoulder into the guard blocking her path and ran toward the platform. The silver needle beneath Vanessa's sapphire ring flashed beneath the candles. Ethan saw it. Too late. Vanessa's fingers were already moving toward the pulse beneath his left ear. Sarah seized the serving tray from a nearby table and swung it with both hands. Silver struck bone. Vanessa cried out as the tray hit her wrist. Her hand snapped sideways, and the hidden needle drove through the white tablecloth instead of Ethan's skin. A single drop of black liquid touched the silver spoon beside it. The spoon darkened instantly. Gasps moved through Wintermoon Hall. Vanessa stared at the metal. Sarah did not. She watched the ring. A thin line of poison remained along the needle. Caleb reached the platform first and caught Vanessa's arm before she could close the mechanism. "Release me," she demanded. Sarah pulled the tablecloth away. The needle had pierced the oak beneath it. Black veins spread through the wood around the point. Ethan looked down, then at Vanessa. "What is inside that ring?" Her face changed. Fear appeared, only briefly. Then outrage replaced it. "She attacked me." Sarah still held the bent tray. "She was about to touch your neck. I was adjusting his collar. With wolfsbane and silver." Dr. Cole pushed through the nobles. "Do not touch the substance." Sarah turned toward him. "You knew what it was before examining it." The healer stopped. Caleb's grip tightened around Vanessa's wrist. The hidden needle remained extended beneath the sapphire. Every person close enough could see it now. Vanessa lifted her chin. "This ring was a gift from my family. I did not know it contained a blade." Sarah pointed toward the blackened spoon. "But you knew where to place it." Murmurs rose across the hall. 3 wounds. 3 bloodstained neckcloths. 3 days of gentle touches beneath the same ear. Ethan's gaze moved from the ring to the place Sarah had indicated. His hand rose toward his collar. Blood marked his fingers when he drew them away. Vanessa saw it. So did the court. She pulled against Caleb. "Your Majesty, she has been stalking me for days. She stole your clothing. She carried poison into this hall." The vial in Sarah's apron seemed to grow heavier. Vanessa had been waiting for this moment. A guard reached into Sarah's pocket before she could stop him. He removed the small glass bottle. Dark wolfsbane leaves floated inside. The hall shifted again. Suspicion turned. Not away from Vanessa. Towards Sarah. Dr. Cole took the vial carefully. "The concentration is enough to kill a royal wolf." Vanessa looked at Ethan with wounded disbelief. "She planted evidence against me because she wanted access to you." Sarah felt every noble I settle on her. The bent tray remained in her hands. The ring remained on Vanessa's finger. The truth stood between them. But truth spoken by a waitress still required permission to exist. Ethan swayed. His fingers closed around the edge of the table. Sarah saw the color leave his face. "Your Majesty?" His knees struck the platform. The room erupted. Vanessa reached for him again. Sarah threw the tray aside and caught his shoulders before his head hit the floor. "Do not let her touch him." Caleb pulled Vanessa back. Ethan's body convulsed once beneath Sarah's hands. His eyes opened, unfocused. "The poison has built up for days," Sarah said. The final dose was already inside him. Dr. Cole knelt. "Move away." "No, you are under arrest." He has minutes before his wolf stops responding. Ethan's hand found Sarah's wrist. His grip was weak, but deliberate. "Listen," he said. Caleb bent closer. Ethan looked at Sarah, then at every guard surrounding her. "For 10 minutes, he whispered, she outranks everyone." His eyes closed, and beneath Sarah's palm, the Alpha King's heartbeat began to disappear. "Warm water," Sarah ordered. "Medicinal charcoal, ember root, clean linen, and the thinnest knife in the kitchen." No one moved. Caleb turned toward the servants. "You heard her." The hall broke apart. Waitresses ran toward the kitchens. Guards cleared the engagement table. Nobles retreated beneath the black wolf banners as Ethan lay across the platform, his head supported in Sarah's lap. His pulse weakened beneath her fingers. 10 minutes. Perhaps less. Dr. Cole reached for Ethan's throat. Sarah struck his hand away. You declared him exhausted while poison entered the same wound for 3 days. I am the royal healer. And he is dying. Cole's face hardened. Vanessa stood between two guards, one wrist still trapped in Caleb's grip. Her sapphire ring had been removed and placed on the blackened tablecloth. You are letting a waitress kill him, she said. Sarah ignored her. She opened Ethan's collar. 3 punctures marked the skin beneath his left ear. The newest wound was wet with blood. Dark veins spread outward beneath the surface. The poison had not entered through food. It had been delivered directly into the place where blood moved fastest. A servant returned with the supplies. Sarah crushed the ember root against the table with the handle of a knife. She mixed it with medicinal charcoal and warm water until the liquid became thick and bitter. Hold his shoulders, she told Caleb. What will this do? Slow the wolfsbane. It will not remove the silver. Ethan's body convulsed. A growl moved through his chest. Not human. Broken. Then silence. Sarah pressed her palm against his sternum. His wolf was retreating. She lifted his head and placed a few drops beneath his tongue. He did not swallow. 9 minutes. Dr. Cole scoffed. You cannot measure the death of a wolf by minutes. My mother could. Sarah massaged Ethan's throat until the liquid passed. His breath caught, then stopped again. She examined the wound more closely. Something pale gleamed beneath the skin. A fragment. The hidden needle had broken during one of Vanessa's earlier touches. Sarah held the thin knife over a candle flame. Vanessa struggled against Caleb. She intends to cut the king open. Sarah looked at her. No, I intend to remove what you left inside him. She pressed warm linen around the wound, then made a narrow cut beneath Ethan's ear. Blood surfaced, black at first, then red. The silver fragment appeared against the blade. Sarah pulled it free. It was smaller than a grain of rice, large enough to silence a royal wolf. Ethan's back arched. Air tore into his lungs. The sound echoed through the hall. Caleb tightened his hold on Ethan's shoulders. Again, Sarah whispered. She gave him more of the mixture. His heartbeat returned beneath her hand. Slow, uneven, alive. Vanessa's composure cracked. Only for a moment. Sarah saw relief nowhere in her face. Dr. Cole stepped backward. Caleb saw that too. Ethan opened his eyes. Gray, unfocused, but conscious. Sarah leaned closer. Your wolf is still there. His hand closed weakly around hers. You counted, he murmured. Every touch. His gaze moved toward Vanessa, then toward Dr. Cole. Understanding entered it. Sarah expected him to order their arrest. Instead, Ethan released her hand and looked at Caleb. Seize the waitress. The command struck harder than any blow. Caleb stared at him. Your Majesty? She attacked my fiancée and carried wolfsbane into this hall. Vanessa's lips parted, then slowly curved. 2 guards took Sarah by the arms. She did not fight. Ethan's eyes met hers as they pulled her away. His expression remained cold. But beneath the edge of his cloak, his fingers tapped twice against the floor. The same signal he had used moments earlier when ordering Caleb to listen. Not disbelief. A warning. He was letting Vanessa believe she had won. The cell door closed before Sarah heard Vanessa laugh. The sound followed her down the stone corridor. Soft. Satisfied. 2 guards removed Sarah's apron, shoes, and hairpins before leaving her inside the lower holding chamber. The room contained a narrow bench, 1 iron ring set into the wall, and a torch burning beyond the bars. No window, no clock, only the fading bitterness of wolfsbane on her fingers. Sarah sat without touching the bench. Ethan had ordered her arrest. The words still struck like cold water. She remembered his fingers tapping twice beneath the cloak. A warning, not disbelief. At least, that was what she needed to believe. Footsteps approached. Vanessa appeared outside the cell wearing a fresh white glove over her injured wrist. Dr. Cole walked beside her carrying his polished medical case. Neither guard remained in the corridor. Vanessa had arranged privacy. You were very convincing, she said. Sarah looked at the bandage beneath her glove. You should keep the wound clean. Silver spoils quickly when it touches poison. Vanessa's smile thinned. You still think observation gives you power. It saved his life. For tonight. Dr. Cole unlocked his case. Inside were glass bottles, folded linen, and narrow silver instruments. Sarah stood. What are you doing? Examining the prisoner, he said. With no witnesses? Vanessa stepped closer to the bars. By sunrise, you will confess that you poisoned Ethan because you believed becoming his healer would raise you above your station. No one will believe that. They already found the vial in your apron. You placed it there. Then prove it. Vanessa turned away. Dr. Cole removed a small needle from his case. Not enough to kill. Enough to weaken her. Enough to make a confession sound confused and desperate. A second set of footsteps entered the corridor. Caleb appeared with 4 guards. Dr. Cole closed the case immediately. The prisoner requires treatment, he said. Caleb looked at the needle. She appears conscious. Vanessa's voice sharpened. Ethan ordered her confined. He did not order her touched. The words carried more than protection. Sarah watched Caleb's hand. 2 fingers tapped once against the hilt of his sword. The same hidden signal Ethan had used. Caleb dismissed Vanessa and Cole from the corridor. Neither argued in front of the guards, but Vanessa looked at Sarah before leaving. A promise. Not a threat made in anger. A promise already planned. When their footsteps disappeared, Caleb unlocked the cell. You have little time. Sarah did not move. Is the king alive? Yes. Weak, but awake. Why pretend to condemn me? Vanessa sent 3 messengers within minutes of your arrest. 1 to the Sterling estate. 1 to the infirmary. 1 to the Western Gate. She is warning her allies. Ethan wants them to move before they know we are watching. Caleb handed Sarah her apron. The vial remains evidence. Sarah examined it beneath the torchlight. Dark leaves floated in clear liquid. The cork had been pressed with red wax. Not sterling silver. Not a noble seal. A crowned serpent marked the surface. Sarah had seen it stamped on medicine crates entering the royal infirmary. This came from Dr. Cole's stores. Caleb nodded. But possession still condemns you. Sarah turned the vial. A pale thread clung beneath the wax. Blue silk. Vanessa's engagement gown had blue silk stitched inside the sleeves. She carried it before placing it in my pocket. That proves contact, not intent. Sarah studied the glass. A faint powder line marked the inside near the cork. Different from the leaves below. 2 substances. 1 vial. Bring me the blood-stained neckcloths, she said. And the silver spoon. They were removed from the hall. By whom? Caleb's face hardened. Dr. Cole. Sarah looked toward the corridor Vanessa had taken. They are destroying the evidence. A bell rang above them. 1 toll. Then another. Caleb drew his sword. That is the Western Gate. Sarah understood. Vanessa's messenger had returned. Not alone. Caleb opened the cell fully. Ethan ordered you to remain imprisoned. Sarah stepped into the corridor. And what did he order you to do? Listen when the waitress sees something we missed. A 3rd bell sounded. From somewhere above, men began shouting. Sarah closed her hand around the poison vial. Vanessa believed the king had rejected her. Now Sarah had to survive long enough to prove he had not. The 3 bells were not an alarm. They were an invitation. By the time Sarah and Caleb reached the upper corridor, armed men wearing sterling colors had entered through the Western Gate. They did not attack. They carried sealed documents, noble witnesses, and a formal demand for Sarah's execution before dawn. Vanessa had not called soldiers. She had called a court. Wintermoon Hall had been cleared of broken glass and blood, but the black stain remained across the engagement table. Ethan sat beneath the wolf banners, pale beneath his formal armor. His left hand rested near the wound below his ear. Vanessa stood opposite him with her injured wrist wrapped in white linen. Dr. Cole had placed the blood-stained neckcloths and silver spoon inside a locked evidence chest beside his chair. Sarah entered between 2 guards. The nobles began whispering. Vanessa smiled. The prisoner escaped confinement. I released her, Caleb said. Then you have betrayed your king. Ethan raised one hand. The hall quieted. Bring the evidence forward. Dr. Cole unlocked the chest. The silver spoon had been polished clean. The 3 neckcloths were gone. Sarah looked at him. You destroyed them. Cole lifted a folded white cloth. This is the only neckcloth recovered. It bore no blood. No purple stain. Vanessa turned toward the gathered nobles. The waitress invented wounds that never existed. Sarah placed the vial from her apron on the table. This came from the royal infirmary. Cole examined the crown serpent seal. Many servants enter my stores. The wax contains blue silk. Vanessa's expression did not change. Sarah held the vial toward the candlelight. A pale thread remained trapped beneath the red seal. The same silk lining your engagement sleeves. Vanessa glanced down. Only once. Sarah continued. The liquid contains 2 layers. Wolfsbane, leaves below. Silver powder, near the cork. It was prepared to look like a complete poison, but the ingredients were never mixed. A noble frowned. Why would that matter? Because it was not meant to poison anyone. Sarah looked at Vanessa. It was meant to be found. Silence moved across the hall. Caleb placed the sapphire ring beside the vial. The hidden mechanism had been forced open. Inside the setting, a narrow channel led toward the silver needle. Sarah unfolded the engagement contract. If Ethan lost control of his wolf, the Sterling family would govern through a royal regency. Vanessa laughed softly. A political agreement is not proof of murder. No, Sarah placed 3 folded laundry records beside it. These are. Each record listed the date Ethan's royal collar had been replaced. 3 days. 3 stained neckcloths. 3 attendants assigned to the royal chambers. Vanessa's personal maid had signed every entry. Sarah looked toward Ethan. My mother treated soldiers poisoned by wolfsbane and silver. My father died after accusing the Sterling mines of testing those compounds on poor border fighters. Vanessa's smile disappeared. Sarah's voice remained steady. I remember the smell because it stayed in our house for weeks. I remember the wounds because my father had them beneath his ear. Ethan's gaze hardened. The same location. Yes. Dr. Cole stepped backward. Caleb noticed. The beta opened the healer's medical case. Inside lay the missing neckcloths. Purple stains spread across all 3. The court erupted. Vanessa turned on Cole. You fool. The words escaped before she could stop them. Every noble heard. Ethan rose slowly. Pain crossed his face, but his voice remained controlled. You were not surprised the evidence existed. Vanessa's hand moved toward her hair. Sarah saw a flash of silver beneath one painted fingernail. A second needle. Vanessa lunged across the table. Not toward Sarah. Toward Ethan. Sarah seized the clean linen beside the evidence chest and wrapped it around Vanessa's wrist before the needle reached his skin. Don't touch him. Caleb pulled Vanessa backward. The false nail tore free and struck the table. Black poison spread across the linen. Dr. Cole ran for the western doors. The guards closed around him. Ethan descended from the platform and stopped beside Sarah. The entire hall waited for judgment. He looked at the poisoned cloth around Vanessa's hand. Then at the waitress who had counted every wound when no one else had cared to see them. She was punished, Ethan said, because she noticed what all of you were too important to question. Vanessa struggled against Caleb. This servant has no authority. Ethan's eyes turned cold. She does now. She does now. Ethan's words crossed Winter Moon Hall more sharply than a drawn blade. Vanessa stopped struggling. Caleb held her poisoned wrist inside the folded linen while 2 guards removed the silver nail from the table. Dr. Cole stood trapped near the western doors, his medical case open at his feet and the stolen neckcloth displayed before the court. The Sterling soldiers reached for their weapons. Ethan turned toward them. Draw steel in my hall, he said, and you will prove you came here for conquest rather than justice. No sword left its sheath. Sarah remained beside the blackened engagement table. Her hands were steady now, though the place beneath her ribs still ached from fear. Vanessa lifted her chin. You cannot condemn a Sterling heir on the word of a waitress. Ethan looked at the sapphire ring, the poisoned nail, the purple-stained linen, and the false vial prepared inside the royal infirmary. I am not condemning you on her word. He faced the nobles. I am condemning you on the evidence she preserved while the rest of us protected your name. Vanessa's expression fractured. You needed this marriage. I needed peace. You needed my family's silver. I needed allies who did not poison me when they touched my throat. A murmur passed through the Sterling witnesses. Ethan descended the final step of the platform. Without his cloak, the breadth of his black armor made the wound beneath his ear appear smaller than it was. He stopped in front of Dr. Cole. How many doses? The healer's mouth trembled. Your Majesty, how many? Cole looked toward Vanessa. She gave him nothing. 7, he whispered. Sarah remembered every moment Ethan had steadied himself against a chair or table. Every time Vanessa had smiled while pretending to support him. Ethan's voice remained controlled. And the border soldiers used for testing? Cole closed his eyes. 32. The hall changed. Several northern nobles turned toward the Sterling delegation with open disgust. Caleb's scarred hand tightened around his sword hilt. Sarah thought of her father returning home with a wound beneath his ear. She thought of her mother burning his blood-stained linen after there was nothing left to save. Names, Ethan ordered. Every healer, guard, miner, and noble involved. Cole sank to his knees. I kept records. Then your records will speak before judgment does. Vanessa laughed once. You believe removing me will protect your throne? Ethan looked at her. No. Sarah protected it before I understood it was in danger. Vanessa's gaze shifted toward Sarah. You will always be a servant. Sarah met her eyes. A servant saw the weapon you wore in front of an entire court. Caleb signaled the guards. Vanessa and Dr. Cole were taken beneath the hall. The Sterling soldiers surrendered their weapons and were confined until their loyalties could be examined. No one stopped the prisoners. No one defended the engagement. Ethan returned to the platform, but he did not sit. Sarah Mitchell. She stepped forward. Old instinct made her lower her eyes. Look at me, he said. Sarah raised her head. The Alpha King removed the silver household key from his belt. It opened the royal kitchens, infirmary stores, private passages, and every chamber through which food, medicine, or guests could reach him. He placed it in her palm. From this moment, Sarah Mitchell is royal warden of the king's household. The nobles stared. Ethan continued. She may inspect any meal, medicine, gift, chamber, or person granted access to the royal family. Her authority extends over servants, guards, healers, and nobles. A Sterling lord stepped forward. You would place royal security in the hands of a waitress. Ethan's eyes hardened. I would place it in the hands of the only person here who noticed I was being murdered. The lord stepped back. Ethan turned toward the servants gathered near the walls. No servant will be punished for reporting danger to the throne. No rank will silence evidence. No healer will examine the royal household without independent oversight. Sarah closed her fingers around the key. This was more than a reward. He was changing the system that had nearly killed him. The court bowed. Hours later, Wintermoon Hall stood empty. The white roses had been removed. The engagement banners lay folded beside the cold hearth. Only the black wolf crest remained above the platform. Sarah stood at the long table, examining the dark mark left by Vanessa's needle. Ethan approached without guards. You should be resting, she said. So should you. I am working. You have held the position for 3 hours, and already found 4 unlocked medicine cabinets. A shadow of amusement touched his face. Then his gaze lowered to the fading bruise on her wrist where the guards had seized her. I ordered them to arrest you. I understood. Not immediately. No, his jaw tightened. I could not warn you without warning Vanessa. You trusted me to recognize the signal. I hoped you would. Sarah looked at him. Kings should not build plans from hope. No, he extended one hand. Then let me ask clearly. She looked at his open palm. There was no audience. No title to grant. No life to save. What are you asking, she said. That you remain at Wintermoon Hall. As your warden? As the woman whose judgment I trust more than my own court. Sarah placed her hand in his. His fingers closed carefully around hers. Not possession. A promise still learning how to become one. Beyond the windows, dawn touched the snow-covered towers. Ethan stood beside her, no longer bleeding beneath his collar. And for the first time, Sarah held the Alpha King's hand without needing to save his life. The first person Sarah refused entry to was Ethan's own brother. 3 mornings after Vanessa's arrest, Lord Marcus Blackwood arrived at Wintermoon Hall with 40 riders, a sealed council order, and no invitation. Snow covered the shoulders of his dark green cloak. He was nearly as tall as Ethan, though leaner, with the same gray eyes and none of his brother's restraint. Sarah stood beneath the raised portcullis holding the household key. You are blocking royal blood, Marcus said. I am verifying it. His riders laughed. Sarah did not. The council seal on his document appeared genuine. The wax carried the correct Black Wolf crest. The parchment named Marcus temporary commander of the Western defenses during Ethan's recovery. Everything was perfect. Except the horse. A royal messenger had arrived 2 hours earlier reporting that the Western Road was buried beneath an avalanche. No mounted company could have crossed it before nightfall. Yet Marcus's horses carried fresh white dust along their hooves. Not snow. Limestone. They had come through the abandoned southern quarry. A route closed since the Sterling mines were accused of testing poison on border soldiers. Open the gate, Marcus ordered. Sarah examined the nearest rider. His cloak bore the Blackwood crest, but the wolf's tail curved inward. Old insignia, used before Ethan became king. You did not come from the Western Road. Marcus's expression changed. Only slightly. My route is not the concern of a former waitress. The king's gates are. He leaned closer. You think holding his key makes you powerful? No, Sarah looked toward the covered wagon behind his riders. What is inside that? Medicine. For whom? My brother. Sarah smelled something bitter beneath the canvas. Not wolfsbane. Ashroot. A herb used to suppress, shifting, and weaken memory after fever. The royal infirmary had requested none. She raised one hand. The portcullis began descending. Marcus seized the bars before they reached the ground. You will regret this. Perhaps. Sarah met his eyes through the iron. But not before the wagon is searched. Captain Caleb appeared on the wall above with 8 archers. Marcus looked up, then smiled. You trained her quickly. Ethan's voice came from behind Sarah. She trained us. He walked into the courtyard without armor, though the wound beneath his ear remained covered in clean linen. His steps were steady, but Sarah saw the effort required to keep them that way. Marcus released the bars. Brother. Ethan stopped beside Sarah. You crossed a closed road with armed men and medicine no healer requested. The council fears your judgment has been compromised. By poison. By gratitude. Marcus looked directly at Sarah. The accusation required no explanation. A servant saved the king. The king trusted her. Therefore, she must be controlling him. Sarah had heard nobles whisper the same thought for 3 days. Ethan removed the council order from her hand and examined the seal. Then he held it near the gate torch. The black wax softened. A second crest appeared beneath the first. A silver crown encircled by thorns. The Sterling family's private mark. Marcus saw it. His confidence faltered. Caleb ordered the wagon opened. Inside were medicine crates, silver restraints, and a folded black banner. The banner carried Marcus's name beneath the royal wolf. Not commander. King. Silence spread across the courtyard. Ethan looked at his brother. You came to protect my throne? Marcus's hand moved toward his sword. Sarah saw the riders respond. 40 men shifted in their saddles at once. Not travelers. An invasion waiting for permission. She turned the household key inside the gate mechanism. Iron barriers dropped behind the riders, sealing the outer courtyard. Caleb's archers raised their bows. Marcus looked around and understood too late. Sarah had not merely refused him entry. She had allowed every traitor to step inside before locking the door. Ethan's gaze settled on her. You noticed the road. The horses. And the seal? You noticed that. For the first time since Vanessa's arrest, a real smile touched his face. Then Marcus drew his sword. The smile disappeared. Take the king alive, Marcus ordered. Sarah closed her hand around the key. The household had survived a poisoned touch. Now it would have to survive royal blood. Marcus's first soldier reached for Sarah. Ethan moved before the man cleared his saddle. He caught the rider's wrist, twisted hard, and pulled him from the horse. The soldier struck the frozen stones. Ethan took his sword before the others understood the attack had begun. Lower your weapons, Caleb shouted from the wall. No one obeyed. Marcus's riders spread through the sealed courtyard, forming a ring around Ethan and Sarah. The iron barriers blocked both exits. Archers waited above, but several loyal guards still stood inside the circle. Too close for arrows. Marcus smiled. You locked yourself in with me. Sarah turned the household key again. A second mechanism engaged beneath the courtyard. Metal groaned below the stones. I locked you away from the castle, she said. The inner doors slammed shut behind Ethan. No traitor would reach the servants, kitchens, infirmary, or sleeping chambers. Marcus raised his sword. You would protect servants before your king? The king is capable of protecting himself. Ethan blocked the first strike. Steel rang across the courtyard. Marcus fought like a man who had studied his brother for years. He knew Ethan favored his right shoulder. He knew the wound beneath Ethan's ear still weakened his balance. Every blow forced him toward that side. Sarah saw the pattern. Marcus was not trying to kill him. He was driving Ethan toward the covered wagon. 2 soldiers pulled silver restraints from inside it. Caleb, Sarah called. The wagon. Caleb understood. His archers changed position. 3 arrows struck the wagon's wheels. A 4th cut the rope holding its canvas. The covering collapsed across the men beneath it. Ethan drove Marcus backward, but the effort cost him. His injured shoulder dipped. Marcus struck the sword from his hand. The blade slid across the stones. A soldier seized Sarah from behind. His arm locked around her throat. Drop the key, he ordered. Marcus pressed his sword beneath Ethan's jaw. The courtyard froze. Sarah felt the soldier's breath beside her ear. His other hand reached for the key clenched in her fist. She looked down. White dust marked his boots, the same limestone as the horses. But beneath it was dark red clay, not from the southern quarry, from the old wine tunnels running under Winter Moon Hall. Marcus had not only brought men through the gate, some had entered beneath it. Sarah drove her heel into the soldier's knee and threw her weight sideways. His grip loosened. She struck his face with the iron key. He fell. "Below us," she shouted. "There are men in the wine tunnels." Caleb signaled 2 guards toward the cellar entrance. Marcus's attention shifted for half a heartbeat. Ethan used it. He caught Marcus's sword arm, drove his forehead into his brother's face, and tore the weapon free. Marcus staggered. Ethan turned the blade beneath his chin. "Yield." Marcus wiped blood from his mouth, then laughed. "You still think I came for the throne?" A sound rose beneath the courtyard. Not boots. Breaking stone. The center drain cracked open. Black smoke poured through the gap. Sarah smelled ashroot immediately, far stronger than the medicine in the wagon. "Cover your mouths," she shouted. The smoke spread low across the ground. Horses collapsed first, then guards. Ethan's grip weakened around the sword. Marcus stepped backward, untouched. He wore a linen filter hidden beneath his collar. So did half his men. The others had never been expected to survive. Sarah tore a strip from her apron and wrapped it across Ethan's mouth. His eyes found hers. "Go inside. The doors are sealed. You have the key." "So do they." She pointed toward the cracked drain. A gloved hand appeared beneath the stones. Then another. Men climbed from the wine tunnels wearing healers' masks and sterling silver around their throats. At their center walked Vanessa. No chains. No prison dress. Her injured wrist was covered by a sapphire glove. Marcus bowed to her. "My queen." Ethan's face went still. Vanessa looked past him and smiled at Sarah. "You saved him from my touch." She raised one hand. Beneath the glove, a new silver needle clicked into place. "Now let us see whether you can save an entire castle from the air." The first servant collapsed before Vanessa finished speaking. A kitchen boy fell against the inner doors, both hands clawing at the linen over his mouth. Ashroot smoke curled beneath the iron threshold and slipped through every crack leading into Winter Moon Hall. Sarah watched the direction of the wind. It was not rising from the courtyard drain alone. The smoke was being pushed through the castle's old heating channels. Marcus had turned the keep itself into a weapon. "Wet cloth," Sarah shouted. "Cover every vent and stay above the floor." Vanessa laughed. "You cannot command people who cannot hear you." Sarah raised the household key. The inner bell mechanism was built into the wall beside the sealed doors. 1 turned summoned servants. 2 called guards. 3 ordered the household to close every kitchen furnace and ventilation grate. She turned the key 3 times. Deep inside the castle, bells began ringing. Not alarm bells. Work bells. The sounds servants understood. Ethan leaned against the iron doors, one hand pressed over the cloth Sarah had tied across his mouth. Ashroot darkened his eyes and weakened the wolf beneath his skin, but he remained standing. "Can you stop it?" he asked. "The smoke enters through the wine tunnels." Marcus smiled through his hidden filter. "Then you know where you must go." Sarah looked toward the broken drain. The tunnel below was filled with armed men and poison. Exactly where Vanessa wanted her. Caleb dropped a rope ladder through the opening. "I will go." "No," Sarah said. "You do not know the furnace channels." "And you do?" "I counted every cellar grate after becoming warden." Vanessa tilted her head. A title given for noticing small things. Sarah wrapped another wet strip of linen around her face. "Small things keep killing your plans." She climbed down. Ethan caught her wrist before she disappeared beneath the stones. His grip was weak but firm. "You are not going alone. You can barely breathe. I can still fight. You are the target. And you are the reason this household still stands." Their eyes held for one heartbeat. Then Caleb lowered himself beside them. "Argue after we survive." The 3 entered the wine tunnel. Smoke thickened below the courtyard, turning the torchlight red. Old barrels lined the walls. Several had been cut open and filled with ashroot powder. Leather bellows forced the poison into copper pipes leading upward. 2 masked men guarded the mechanism. Caleb struck the first before he could draw his blade. Ethan drove the second into the wall, but the movement forced him to one knee. Sarah reached the bellows. The main lever was chained open. She searched for the release. Nothing. Marcus had removed it. Above them, Vanessa's voice traveled through the drain. "Every breath he takes belongs to me now." Sarah examined the copper pipes. 6 channels. 1 feeding the royal wing, 1 the servants' hall, 1 the infirmary, 3 leading toward the great hall and guard barracks. A single pipe remained clean. The kitchen chimney. Fire pulled air upward, not downward. We cannot close the bellows, Sarah said. But we can reverse them. Caleb looked at the furnace shaft. With what fire? Sarah pointed toward the wine barrels. Alcohol. They split the nearest cask and poured wine into the stone channel beneath the kitchen pipe. Caleb struck flint. Flame raced through the liquid. Heat roared upward. The draft changed. Smoke hesitated inside the copper pipes, then began moving backward. Above them, men shouted. The ash root poured away from the castle and returned through the courtyard drain. Vanessa's soldiers tore off their filters too late. Several fell. Others staggered toward the gates. Marcus appeared at the tunnel entrance with his sword drawn. You were supposed to save the king, he said. Sarah stood beside the burning channel. I am saving everyone. He lunged. Caleb blocked the first strike, but Marcus drove him against the barrels. Ethan rose between them, slower than before, but still dangerous. Brother met brother beneath the castle. Steel struck once, twice. Marcus aimed for Ethan's wounded neck. Sarah seized the iron chain attached to the bellows and wrapped it around Marcus's sword arm. She pulled with both hands. His blade turned aside. Ethan struck him across the chest and sent him into the smoke. Marcus fell beside the burning wine. His linen filter caught fire. He tore it away, coughing. Above them, the courtyard gates opened. Loyal guards entered from the eastern wall. Vanessa screamed an order to retreat. Sarah climbed back toward the courtyard. She emerged through the drain as Vanessa reached the outer barrier. The sapphire glove remained raised, its hidden needle pressed against the throat of a young maid she had seized as a shield. Open the gate, Vanessa said, or she dies. The maid's eyes found Sarah, terrified, waiting. Ethan climbed from the tunnel behind her. Vanessa smiled. Choose, Your Majesty, the servant or the woman who would become your queen. Sarah looked at the gate mechanism, then at the household key in her hand. Vanessa believed the key controlled only doors. She had never served in Wintermoon Hall. Sarah turned it backward. A narrow service hatch opened beneath Vanessa's feet. The floor dropped. Vanessa lost her balance and released the maid. Caleb caught the girl. Ethan caught Vanessa's poisoned wrist before the needle reached anyone. Her sapphire glove struck the stones. The hidden blade shattered. Vanessa stared at Sarah from her knees. You were nobody. Sarah looked around the courtyard. Servants were sealing vents. Guards were carrying the injured. Kitchen maids poured water across smoking grates. Every person Vanessa had considered invisible was keeping the castle alive. No, Sarah said. You simply never learned our names. Ethan pulled Vanessa to her feet and placed her in iron restraints. Marcus was dragged from the tunnel beside her. The smoke began thinning. Wintermoon Hall remained standing. But as the eastern bell sounded, Caleb opened one captured medicine crate and found no ashroot inside. Only sealed letters. Each bore the crest of a different allied pack. Sarah broke the first seal. The message contained a single command. When Blackwood falls, rise together. Ethan read over her shoulder. Vanessa had not come to seize one castle. She had come to start a war. The first allied pack arrived before sunset. Not to attack. To ask why its seal had been placed on a declaration of war. Alpha Lord Daniel Mercer entered Wintermoon Hall carrying the letter Caleb had recovered from Vanessa's medicine crate. Behind him came representatives from 5 northern packs, each holding an identical message. Different crests. The same handwriting. The same command. When Blackwood falls, rise together. Ethan stood beneath the black wolf banners with clean linen covering the wound below his ear. Ashroot still weakened his body, but no one in the hall mistook exhaustion for surrender. Sarah stood at his right. Vanessa and Marcus knelt in iron restraints before the gathered leaders. Dr. Cole had been brought from the lower cells, pale and silent beneath armed guard. Daniel threw his letter onto the council table. I never authorized this. Neither did we, another Alpha said. Vanessa smiled from her knees. Of course you did not. Your stewards did. The hall shifted. Sarah examined the letters again. The seals were genuine. The signatures were not. Vanessa had not needed every Alpha to support her. She had only needed trusted servants inside each household to open gates, move soldiers, and convince frightened leaders that war had already begun. Who carried these messages? Sarah asked. Daniel looked toward his captain, a royal courier wearing Blackwood colors. Ethan's gaze hardened. There were no Blackwood couriers sent. Sarah turned the parchment toward the candles. A faint powder clung to the edge. White. Chalk mixed with lavender oil. She had smelled it that morning on the gloves of the messengers Marcus brought through the gate. Not military chalk. Laundry marking powder. Servants used it to label noble clothing before large gatherings. These letters passed through household laundries, she said. A noble frowned. What does that prove? That Vanessa did not build her network through armies. Sarah looked toward the servants standing near the walls. She built it through rooms no lord ever entered. Vanessa's smile disappeared. Caleb opened the captured ledgers. Names filled the pages. Housekeepers, wardrobe attendants, stable clerks, infirmary assistants. People trusted because powerful men had never considered them important enough to question. Sarah read the first name aloud. A servant from Mercer Keep stepped forward before the guards could find him. Then another, and another. Some confessed because they had been paid. Others because their families had been threatened. A few had believed the Alpha Kings deserved to fall. By midnight, the conspiracy had names. By dawn, it had witnesses. Marcus refused to speak until Ethan placed the false coronation banner on the table before him. You were never meant to be king, Ethan said. Marcus looked at Vanessa. For the first time, fear entered his face. She promised every ambitious man the same throne, Sarah said. Vanessa lunged toward her. The chain stopped her before she crossed the first step. You think this court will remember a waitress after the war begins? Sarah looked around the hall. At the servants giving testimony. At the allied alphas ordering their own households investigated. At the guards removing forged seals from the council table. The war already began, she said. You simply lost it before the soldiers arrived. Vanessa and Marcus were taken below. Dr. Cole followed them. The allied pacts signed no treaty that morning. They signed something stronger. A household accord requiring every royal message, medicine, seal, and military order to be verified by 2 independent witnesses, one of whom could not be a noble. When the final signature dried, Ethan turned toward Sarah. This exists because of you. It exists because people were finally allowed to speak. He descended from the platform. Before the entire council, he removed the Black Wolf signet from his hand. Not the crown, not the throne. The private seal used to authorize access to his person and household. He placed it beside the key, already hanging from Sarah's belt. Then make certain they are never silenced again. Sarah looked at the seal. This gives me authority over every royal order. It gives you authority to challenge mine. The hall went completely quiet. No Alpha King had offered such power publicly. Sarah lifted her eyes. And when I tell you that you are wrong? Ethan's mouth curved faintly. I will try to deserve the warning. Later, after the council departed, Sarah found him alone beside the engagement table. The black stain from Vanessa's needle remained in the wood. Ethan held out his hand. No audience watched. No danger waited. Sarah placed her fingers in his. This time, neither of them needed saving. Outside, the gates of Wintermoon Hall opened to the morning. Servants crossed beside nobles carrying copies of the new accord. And for the first time, every warning reached the throne before betrayal could touch the king.